We hope you enjoy this episode of the Modern Divorce Podcast. But first, an important message for our listeners.
Hi, this is attorney Billy Tarasio, and my partner Julie and I have created a resource for you if you are representing yourself in family court. No one should go into family court without knowing the basics, and we will teach you everything you need to know at Win Without Law School to represent yourself with confidence. We'll teach you how to get exhibits in, how to draft your pretrial statements, and how to speak to the judge so the judge will listen. We'll teach you how to defend against false accusations and everything you need to know to be an effective advocate, both if you're negotiating or if you're presenting evidence. Don't wait. Go to winwithoutlawschool.com. We can help you. Hello, and welcome to a special edition episode of the Modern Divorce Podcast. I am joined today by Rick Kuehner, one of the most important people in the center of the Gilbert Goons saga. Rick and I have a lot to talk about with regard to Gilbert PD, Chandler School District, Gilbert Goons, what it's like to be a victim, how to get protection. Rick, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. And I don't want to gloss over the fact that your willingness to talk as much as you have and give as much detail as you have has been absolutely critical to get the truth out, to spread awareness, and so that we as parents and community members can figure out what is going on and how do we make sure that our community is safe. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Rick's son was a victim of a vicious, horrible attack by what we now know as the Gilbert Goons. He was not protected. His attackers were only recently arrested after public pressure came to the forefront, and the consequences for Rick and his son have been pretty horrible. Let's start at the beginning. What happened with your son? And let's call him Ryan.
Okay. Well, if we go way back, and many of you might not know, this is actually the third time my son's been attacked. So he was attacked when he attended Campo Verde High School at a bus stop. Got beat up pretty bad there for no reason. Kids were there, witnessed it. They even videotaped it. I literally had to pick him up off of the ground. He was laying in the ground in a bunch of thorny bushes. He had cuts all over him from the thorns because he couldn't move because the person that attacked him, punched his kidneys so hard he couldn't even walk. So I was able to get him into the car, get him home, called the police and all that. And this is kind of where it all started. So this was 2 years ago.
What was the date of that attack?
I think it was right before Thanksgiving, if memory serves me.
Of 2022?
2021, I would.
2021.
2021, yeah.
Do we know if was that a random attack by teenagers?
It was one kid.
Okay.
He was a gang member.
Okay.
I know he's in juvie. I think he's still in juvie to this day. So he's got a long record. But yeah, my son, he had very major injuries to his kidneys, internal bleeding and stuff. It took him 30 days to heal before he could even go back to school. But anyway, he was afraid to report it. He didn't want to report anything. Of course, I got a hold of the principal and the resource officer, and because it happened on a bus stop, that's considered, the school grounds. So we filled out a report and everything, and I wasn't used to this. It wasn't something I was accustomed to deal with, so I didn't know all the ins and outs and the legalities and stuff. So that one kind of, we knew the kid was taken out of the school and he ended up going to juvie. And from my understanding, he's still there to this day. So anyway, we got past that. But I'm bringing it up because I think it's important for the community to understand that this is something that's been going on for a while, and I really feel it's been swept under the rug by the school districts and the police department.
Just want to take a
Um,
second and confirm that because over the last 6 weeks, my DMs are full of parents who say, this happened to my child. And there's so many parents who are telling me, my
mhm,
child was sexually abused or my child was physically assaulted at school.
yeah,
And it's truly something that I think we all just didn't grasp or understand until now. And I don't know that we really have a full picture of the extent of the problem. So I just want to agree
yeah,
with you.
yeah. We don't, and there's so much more that's going to be exposed. I'm sure of it. My son even told me, he goes, "Dad, going to school was like a war zone." And I can only compare to when I went to high school and stuff, and it was not like that at all. So it was hard to grasp that. And I moved to Gilbert on purpose because it was ranked at the time the second safest largest city in the United States by the FBI, and had the best school districts in Arizona. So, I thought, oh, well, this is a great place to raise a family. And if you live in Gilbert, it's a beautiful town, and it's a lot of nice stuff. But all these things were going on, and there was also, I brought to the when that happened too, I brought to the attention of the principal and the school resource officer about, I said, "Are you aware of all the drugs that are being sold here? Are you aware these kids have guns?" Because I saw the pictures. I saw my son, was propositioned all the time to buy drugs, even to sell them. And he witnessed and saw, duffel bags full of the stuff, and kids having weapons. And I'm like, this can't be right. This is, maybe this is just a bunch of bull crap or something, but it is right. It turned out it is true. And it's not just those schools, it's a lot of schools around here. So that was very concerning to me. Fast forward, he got attacked one more time in the restroom. Um, my son's a competitive swimmer, so the day right before state, because he made state. It was in the same year. A kid jumped him in the bathroom, and we have him on video, and they brought him in, and that he's gone too. He's been expelled, and he's in another state. But he didn't. Again, my son was in fear, and he did not want to narc on him, because the rumor out there is, if you snitch on somebody, they'll kill you.
Oh my gosh.
And that's what these kids say. And I've heard many other parents as well state that same thing through these town meetings and stuff I've attended. So we moved on. He got through his sophomore year, and I said, we're not going back to that school, because it's not safe for you. So we're gonna start you off in a new school, Perry High School. Let's get you in there. It's his junior year. We're gonna start fresh. You don't know anyone there. We'll get you on the swim team. I even was able to um, get him to not have to sit out 6 swim meets because of the circumstances and all. So he was all excited about that. And literally, what school started at the end of July in 2023. Literally within a week, he was getting threatening Snapchat messages from Ryan, this kid Ryan, and another kid too. And
Okay.
he showed those to me.
So let's stop right here. We are not using this child's real name. We're going to call him Ryan. His name is not Ryan. Many people think they know his name. We're not going to say his name. So for
Yeah.
this purpose, we're calling him Ryan. Ryan was a classmate of your son's,
Yes.
and he began reaching out and terrorizing him via Snapchat within 1 week of school starting.
Yes.
And one
And
other student, you said?
it was another student too. So I compiled those screenshots of the Snapchats, and I went to the vice principal who's in charge of the 11th grade, and with the school resource officer, and I said, "Look, here's the evidence. I'm showing you these. I emailed them to him, and I said, they're threatening my son. He doesn't even know these kids.
Can you
never even
tell
met
me what they said?
him. Some of them were like a picture of them holding a gun pointed at him, saying, we're going to jump you, stuff like that. There's so many of them. Honestly, I can't remember them all, but the point was, because I went through this already at
Yeah.
Campo Verde,
Yeah.
I am taking this very seriously.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm going to the right people, that, well, at least I thought the people I'm supposed to go to bring this to their attention, because those messages were happening on school time. So during school hours or whatever. Not not
Wow.
not all of them, but some of them. So it didn't matter, right? It's still on school time, and
Right.
they would even taunt him, like when they saw him on the stairs passing him, and they would like yell out his name and taunt him and stuff. And he's like, "Dad, I don't even know these guys. What? I don't even know why they're even doing this." So maybe he's the new kid. I don't know. We couldn't figure it out. So I brought that information. I gave it to the school resource officer as well as the vice principal, and I said, "Look, we need to do something. It's not a matter of if something happens; it's a matter of when." I said, "I've dealt with this before. My son's already paranoid because he's already been jumped before, and they knew that. I told them all that."
Okay, so let me
I
stop you for a minute. So he
Okay.
started school at the end of July. This
Hmm.
timeline wise, we know that the in and out attack happened August 18th. So
Right.
when are we talking here that this happened where he was getting snaps and you were talking to the school?
Yeah, it was probably a week after school started, so the
First week of
first week
August.
August, just around there.
Okay.
And I can probably go back and get exact times from the emails and stuff, but just in general, so you can get an idea of the timeline. It was a very short window.
Yeah.
Um, so I bring it to their attention. I'm like, look, let's get the parents of these kids I've identified that I sent you. They knew who they were. The school knew who they were, and let's sit in a room and figure out why these kids hate my kid so much that they want to threaten them. Maybe we can figure something out, be responsible adults, and maybe you can find out, and maybe you don't even know your kid's doing that. I don't know, but until we get in a room together and we all talk about this, we're not going to figure this out or prevent it. So I'm told that the vice principal, said he would, because he can't give me their number. I said, I understand that. Here's my number. I'm giving you permission to give them my number so they can call out to me, or even you, and you can set up the meeting. Um, so he said he would do it. I have no idea if he did or not. I'm trying to get what is it, the fair,
Freedom of
the,
Information
yeah, Freedom of
Act
Information Act,
request.
to see if I can get that information,
Mm-hmm.
to see if those emails were ever sent, or did they make a phone call and
Mm-hmm.
even tell these parents.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what I found out later. So I never heard anything back. I'll get to that in a minute. So I didn't hear anything back. Literally a week after that, this same kid, Ryan, him and some goons, they show up to my house, my personal residence. They knew where I lived. They knew what car I drove. They knew where I worked. And I'm walking my dog. They show up, and one car shows up first. Some girl rolls down her window, says, "Hey, excuse me," and then she rolled it up. Oh, never mind. They knew what car my son drove. They saw it in the garage parked. They take a picture of it, send it to my son. My son sends that to me, says, "Hey, Dad, these guys are here at the house. They're threatening. They're going to kick your ass and my ass." Another car comes up, which is Ryan's car, because I know what he drives. I take my dog back inside, and I come back out, and I'm watching these two cars pull up to the front. They get out. These kids get out. They open their trunks. I don't know what they're getting out of their trunks, and they walk in this grass area right near my house. By the time I got over there, I had my phone out because I was trying to record it, but it was so dark I couldn't. It just didn't pick anything up. And then by the time I got over there, they jump in the car and take off. I had already told my son to call the police. The police were on their way. One cop car goes off chasing, because I knew we were told where the one car was going. So they actually pull up. They said they found the car in the drive-through at Cane's and got the plate number and it was registered to somebody, they told me, and then the other car was gone. But I told him that at that point, I knew who it was. I recognized the kid. I know what he looks like. I know what car he drives. And they gave me a case number for that. Me and an officer went through my son's Snapchat, because I'm like, maybe my son's saying something. Maybe he's instigating this. I'm a fair-minded person. If my son's responsible for something, I'm going to hold him accountable. We couldn't find anything. There was nothing. We went like an hour and a half through there. Anyway, they gave me a case number. They take off, and I never heard anything back from them. Crickets,
So
just
that
crickets.
that police report would have been that first week of August.
Yeah, I have a police report number for that one.
Okay. And that would be for threatening and intimidation. And you
Uh,
you
yeah,
identified Ryan,
yes,
and the cops knew that Ryan was identified as someone who had been sending your son pictures of
yeah,
guns, threatening texts, showed up at your house,
yes,
and nothing happened.
nothing. Crickets,
Nothing from the school, nothing from the police.
absolutely nothing. So what I found out after that was that kid, Ryan, his mom is a principal for the Chandler Unified School District. So then I'm like, maybe that's why I haven't heard anything. I don't know. I can't obviously prove anything, but when you don't get communicated with, that's what happens, right? You start thinking of things and
Well,
trying
you're
to
trying to come up,
understand a thing.
yeah,
I'm
like
trying to justify it.
what possible reason could there be for
Yeah.
police to allow one child to terrorize somebody else? And so you're saying that this child's mom is a principal for a school in Chandler school districts,
Yes.
and Perry is also in Chandler school districts.
Correct.
Okay,
So I'm connecting the dots here.
we're connecting the dots. So
Yep.
nothing happens with that first police report. That's the first week of August, maybe the second week of August.
Second week for the second incident. Yeah. And then it couldn't have been a couple days after that. So maybe it was around the 15th or 16th, but of August. Literally, then on the night of the 18th, my son asks if he gets around 10 o'clock, if he can go to In-N-Out. I live really close to it. Drive over there. He was just going to meet his friend. I'm like, okay, you got 15 minutes. I'll give you 15 minutes. Because I was still concerned of what's going on. That I said, I, I I originally said no, and then I kicked myself in the butt because then I said, yeah, go ahead, because he's a teenager. I know he wants to go out and hang out with his friends and that. Literally, so he leaves. Literally 15 minutes later, I get the phone call from him. Dad, I got jumped. I just got jumped. They jumped me. I'm like, what? And he said, yeah, they just jumped me. Um, and then he hung up. Somehow he got in his car and drives back home. So I meet him at the garage, and one of his friends followed him just to make sure he got home. He walks up to me and he's covered in blood everywhere. His mouth. I mean, I know you probably seen photos of him, but that was after he was cleaned up quite a bit. So you can imagine it was even worse. He didn't have shoes on. I'm like, "Where's your shoes?" He goes, "They stole my shoes." Um, he I got a chair, put him down. I called the police right away. Police showed up. They started looking at him over. I said, let's call the paramedics, make sure, because I didn't know what kind of injuries he had or anything. It was hard to see anything with all the blood.
Right.
I saw footprints on his shirt, on his back from where they were stomping him. Um, he had, I felt his head. He had two big lumps on his head from when they tackled him and he hit the asphalt. So I'm like, does he have concussions? Who knows what's going? We got to go get him taken care of. So the police got as much information as they could. The officer gave me a case number. I asked at that time, I want a detective. We need a detective for this because I knew I had so much information. I gave them the name of Ryan and told him this is the kid that's been threatening him. He's the one that came to my house, threatened us. He's orchestrated this whole thing. So they at that time I got him in the car and I took him over to the hospital. I'm supposing they went over to that Ryan's house. Anyway, we spent the whole day there, or the whole night at the hospital. We had to get X-rays and do all kinds of stuff to make sure he didn't have concussions, internal bleeding, stuff like that. Um, when I got back, they said I did hear from the officer the next day that they went to his house and they said, basically he said he didn't have anything to do with it. So they just left. And that's literally the last time I heard from the officer. So I'm like, this is ridiculous. Is this really happening? I said, this can't be true. So I had his phone number. I texted the officer, said, is there any follow up on this? What's going on? And literally he texted me back and said, well, we're just going to give the video to the SROs, the school resource officers at the different schools like Williamsfield and ALA and all those surrounding schools like that to see if they can identify any of those kids.
Okay. Can I
And
ask you
I
a few
literally,
questions?
yeah,
Oh, sorry.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, I was just I literally responded back. So basically, you're doing nothing. That was my response, and I never heard back from him again.
Okay. So how many kids were involved, to the best of your knowledge, in your kiddos?
At least 10.
10.
Yeah,
Okay.
there was a pickup truck, and I know whose truck it is. I know his name's on the license plate of the truck. His last name is, oh my gosh, it's so obvious. And they pulled up, and they didn't know my son.
Yeah.
These kids didn't.
But they
They
knew
had,
Ryan.
they knew Ryan because Ryan's the one that told them. So they drive up and they jump out of the pickup truck when they see him get out of the car, and that's when they attacked him.
Okay. 10 people. The only person that your son knew was Ryan.
He identified him, and he saw a couple others. He said that were there,
Oh,
but
he
he says,
knew.
"Dad, I'm covering up. I'm getting beat. I recognized at least two of them."
Okay. So he named Ryan and at least one other person that he knew from school.
Yes,
Okay.
who,
Um,
by the way, was arrested recently for another Pinal County thing.
okay, let's go. Let's put a pin in that and come back to it.
Yeah. Oh, there's
So
all kinds of weaving and webbing here. Trust
so
me.
we will weave and whip. Okay, so in terms of the video, where did the video come from?
Well, that's a good question. They got the video from Ryan, and he even pointed out he was there and pointed, "This is me," and all that. So that's really frustrating. I don't even know what to say.
It's incredibly frustrating. And I listened to the police chief give his first press conference yesterday. And he did his very best to explain what happened. And he said that there was not probable cause until other people in the video were identified. So let me just back up. There's this video, there's these pictures of all these kids involved in your son's beating. Gilbert PD puts those photos up sometime in December, following public outrage and following you coming forward telling your story. Gilbert was like, oh, we better do something. So they put up photos. And within hours, the moms and dads of Gilbert have put together the web.
Mhm.
They've identified the kids. They've identified them publicly. They've sent it to the police. And then weeks later, many weeks later, we get the first arrest, who was, I think, Christopher Fantastic.
Mr. Fantastic.
Mr. Fantastic. He was the first arrest. The
Yes.
second arrest was Aries Arredondo.
Yes, and
Now,
he's the one that my son identified that hit him in the mouth, caused a scar on his mouth.
what I think we're hearing from Gilbert Police, I believe what we've heard from Gilbert Police is that Aries identified Ryan.
Maybe it was. You might know something I don't, but that's possible. I don't.
How
I've had so many details. I apologize. I don't. It's probably makes sense. I believe they know each other, and I believe Ryan contacted them to come to the In and Out to assault him.
So, what the police said is once we got the identification of the people, Aries, Christopher Fantastic, and two unnamed juveniles, are one of those unnamed juveniles Ryan?
Yes, and he got arrested.
He's been arrested. And the other unnamed juvenile, was he a juvenile that your son had previously identified?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So it wasn't until the public identified these other people that somehow there was probable cause enough to arrest the people that your son had named. And I cannot understand that. I cannot understand why the word of your son saying this person hit me, coupled with all the other information, isn't probable cause.
Yeah, if you can figure that out, let me know.
And so these people who all the teens know are involved in brutal beatings are walking around terrorizing their peers by their very presence.
Yeah, and I think my personal opinion is they feed off of that fear, knowing that they have that ability, and they're involved in many beatings. They're involved throughout the different school districts. They're all connected in some way and in some form, and there's quite a few of them. So, like I said, there's a lot more I think that's coming this way. Here's how you got to think about it this way. To your point, my son's attack was August 18th. I gave him that information. They get the video that night, this and that. Nothing happens, right? I was giving up hope. I didn't know where. I went to the school district. I went to the police. Who else am I supposed to go to? I'm trying to do the right thing as a citizen. And then if you read the report from Christopher Fantastic, he states in there that the reason they jumped my son was because he went to the school officials to tell him he was getting threatened. So my son's doing, which is me. It wasn't him. I did it. My son's doing the right thing. And if I just imagine if I never did that, this stuff would still be going on. But back to my point, it's August 18th. This happens. I am luckily I by the grace of God I was introduced to somebody who helped me and I was able to get onto the news and tell my story. And then all of a sudden, let's just say my case was inactive. They say it's inactive. I say it's closed. That they're like, well, it's not closed, it's inactive. I'm like, what's the difference? Inactive means you're doing little to nothing. That's the definition in the dictionary. So basically you're doing nothing, just like I said they were doing. And now all of a sudden, let's say after the news media and stuff gets involved and the pressure starts building, let's say they reopen the case December 12th.
Mm,
I finally get a detective assigned, which is, remember, I asked for that back on the 18th. The detective gets signed, say December 12th. So between December 12th and January 9th, they make 4 arrests.
right.
Well, that's funny. How did they do it so quickly then? But they couldn't do that 4 months ago. Maybe, and if any of those kids, any of them, were part of Preston Lord's attack, maybe Preston Lord would still be alive today. I struggle with that. That's something hard to think about as a parent because
Well,
I've met those parents and we've talked and you know I, my son's still alive and thank God, but I can't imagine what they're going through.
we won't know until we get those 7 names, but I believe that Ryan has been named by the girlfriend's mom, right?
Yes.
It's the same
Yep.
person.
Yeah, he was also just recently in a video at another fight at a house party.
So
So
there is witnesses that have come forward that have told their story that have said the same boys who were involved in your son's brutal beating were also involved in Preston's killing. Now, this is alleged. Nobody's been convicted, but parent witnesses have said this.
yes.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking and infuriating. It's hard to
Yeah,
understand.
if it turns out to be true, I mean, I don't even know where we go with that because there was so much. I don't know. The question, you hear is like, well, you think you hear these rumors are, they're getting paid off because of influential people, or are they just incompetent? And I've been asked that question. I said, I don't know. I hope it's not any of those, but um, it's just the fact that this has been going on for years. It has. It's been going on for years. Think about it. Mr. Fantastic just got arrested again. He got out on bond on mine. What, 2 days later, he gets arrested again by Mesa PD for an attack that happened before my son's in May.
Right.
So it just proves that this has been going on a while and stuff's been getting swept under the rug. I've sat in the Queen Creek, Gilbert, and Chandler town halls, and I've heard stories from parents that get up and talk, basically saying this. There's one common denominator. They Things have happened either to them or family members, and when they reached out to authorities or police or schools or whatever, it just got swept under the rug. Why is that? So I'm just
Let's
here to bring awareness as much as I can, because if we need to clean house and get the right people in the right office, then I'm prepared to help do that.
Absolutely. Like, whatever it is, schools may need a whole lot more resources. Cops may need more resources. Whatever it is, this community it is worth it. No matter
Yeah.
what is needed to make this situation better, it is worth it. We have to be honest and figure out what that is. Not try to cover our mistakes. Apologize. Apologize because it got missed. And then how do we fix it? But until we admit that we have dropped the ball, how do we, in good conscience, think as citizens that our leaders can move forward and actually clean it up?
Yeah, and that's a big issue. It's I wish that our mayor and our police chief would be more transparent, and I understand there's sensitive things they can't discuss and all, but at least communicate with the community to let us know that you care and that you're really working hard to do things. Each time the chief speaks, it's the same thing. I hear the same message. I hear the same thing. I'm not hearing results. I'm hearing a lot of reasons, but no results. So it's a little frustrating. This should have never happened to my son. You know, I have my son's still alive by the grace of God, but he's not the same. He's not the same kid, and that's you know, yeah, he's healed from his physical wounds, but he's not the same son that I knew. And I pray that he will be one day, but this is, taking a toll on him mentally,
Of course.
you know, and he's not even in the country. I can't, it's not like I can go drive an hour or take a flight domestically and see him. It's very, very difficult. And I don't think, I know a lot of the parents understand that, but I don't know if the police or the council and stuff realize that, you know. So
And
I
we
just want everyone to know.
You're absolutely right. You've had to lose a son. Your son's had to lose his high school. It's the consequences here have been astronomical. By the grace of God, he is alive. Can we go back to what happened after August 18th? How long was it between August 18th and when you decided he is not safe in the country?
So after that attack, I was like, there's no way you can go back to that school. The Mr. Ryan actually sits next to him in English class. Here's another frustrating thing about the schools. I didn't, you know, I called up and said, hey, what options do I have? I don't feel safe having my son come back to that school
This is after the attack?
after the attack. And I was told that, well, because I told him, I said, this kid sits right next to him in his class, and they said, well, we can separate him and have him sit in another part of the room. I was like, when I heard that answer, I was like, okay, these guys have no clue. um, I reached out to the superintendent he was on vacation, so I got some other gentleman, and I still wanted to know what kind of follow up I was, did they ever, you know, contact those parents like I asked? I was trying to find out if that ever happened. And then I met, I went down to the school. I kept going down there and like, is there a counselor, somebody that has ideas, suggestions? Is there an online program? So I said, I need to do something. He can't not go to school. Can he still be on the swim team and go? There's all kinds of things. Nobody was giving me any advice. Nobody was giving me any help. And the most frustrating thing, and to this day, it still bothers me, is not one person at Perry High School. That's right, Perry High School. I don't care. They need to know. Said, you know what? I'm sorry for what happened to your son. Not one person. And when I met, my final time I went there and I met finally with the principal, and she sat and talked, we were sitting there in the room, and she's like, okay, so what's going on? I'm like, really? I got it. You don't know what's going on? I got to explain to you. And I told her that. I said, you know what? I'll I'll walk through this if you need to, but I'm really disappointed that you don't know. And I said, you know what? Not one person's even showed any empathy for what's happened and said, you know what? I'm sorry what's happened to your kid. And then right then she goes, oh, well, I'm sorry for what happened to your kid. I said, no, 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 no. You don't get off like that. That's so insincere and fake. I said, I don't even want your apology. It means nothing. And I walked out. I was just like done. So that's when I knew he couldn't come back. And I could not keep him in Gilbert because he was still getting threats after the fact. And everywhere we went, um, he was paranoid. Couldn't leave the house. If he went to the gym, he'd have to
Oh,
come with me. And kids would say stuff. They were spreading rumors about him that were false on Snapchat and stuff. And I'm going to follow up on those rumors too because that's defamation of his character. They're not true, and they have affected him psychologically greatly. So there's so many things, Billy, that are going through my head and emotions and things that happen I'm so upset about. But I think it's pretty clear just in our conversation that the school failed miserably and the police department failed miserably. And there needs to be accountability for that, because there's other kids that have gone through the same thing. And my son even told me that there's a kid that went to his school that was so embarrassed and so humiliated, he didn't even tell his parents. And to this day, we don't know. Maybe he hasn't. And these are the kids that what wouldn't surprise me, they come and do a school shooting or something. So we have to be more aware. The schools have to be more involved. And I don't know the rules and the regulations, but I'm slowly finding out the things that they need to do. But they totally dropped the ball, in my opinion, with my son and provided no options. I had to do the research myself. Luckily, his mother lives overseas, and we both agreed that would be the safest place for him. And it broke my heart. I've raised him my whole life, and we're best friends. He's not only my son, he's my best friend. And the day I sent him on that airplane, I lost it. I just, I'm sorry.
there's no sorries.
So that's why I'm committed to doing this. I probably have an advantage because my son's not here. And so I don't have to worry about any kind of retaliation or stuff. Because I have talked to some parents that they want their story to be out there. They just don't want to be identified or known because they still have kids that go to that school. As a matter of fact, I talked to a parent the other night, and they pulled their kid out of Perry High School because they were in the same class as Ryan, and they didn't feel comfortable. And then I hear stories like, oh, he's out at the car show, he's going up to Flagstaff skiing and stuff, and I'm like, really? Where's the parents? Where's the accountability from these parents? So there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of emotions going on, but I'm confident when this is all said and done that we'll be able to fix it as a community. We'll be able to get the right people in the right jobs to care for our kids and do the right thing. And I just want to thank all the parents and those super, super, super duper moms out there. Let me tell you, those ladies are fantastic. And without them, these arrests wouldn't have happened. It's almost, I told a lady the other day, I said, I got so many tips and these guys did so much work that I sent all this stuff to the detective. I'm like, I don't even know what the detective did because I gave him everything.
I appreciate your optimism. I am also an optimist. I want to agree with you that this is going to be an ugly chapter where children have had to become poster children. Preston Lord and your son and other children who have gone through this have had to become examples in order to explain to the community what has happened. Journalists have been heroes. Parents who have come forward and shared have been heroes. We will not make progress until we get actual accountability, until our leaders call it what it was. Maybe
Amen.
everybody did the best they could. It's still a failure. Call it what it was.
Yeah. Yep. You're absolutely right. And look, like I said, I don't know all the facts and everything. I can only tell you my side of the story. I can only tell you from my lens and how what I've experienced, but none of it makes very much sense to me. And I just think we have to continue to press this forward because I think we're going to hear more cases. It's funny, right? Because they reopened 4 cases, which why they were closed in the first place baffles me. And then since then, 5 more cases have come up from even 14 months ago. So maybe, by myself and others standing up and going out public with this, maybe they're not feeling as afraid and they're willing to tell their story. And I encourage any kids that have been victims that haven't said anything, they can reach out to me if they want. I'll tell their story for them, but it needs to get out there because we need to cleanse all this that's been going on, and we need to make it right. So going forward, these kids growing up will have a very safe place to go to school, and their parents will feel that it's a safe place for them to go as well.
Rick, thank you so much for coming on my show and for everything that you have done. We are all sorry for your loss and our communal failure to protect your son.
Well, look, I appreciate those kind words, and I really appreciate the support I've been getting. So, again, anything I can do to help, just let me know. I'm there.
Thanks so much for listening to the Modern Divorce Podcast. Remember, anything you've heard today or anything you read online is not the replacement for actual consultation with an attorney and does not create an attorney-client relationship. Even if you called in and we spoke to you, you were anonymous and we don't have your details and you have not become a client of Modern Law. However, we would love to speak with you, or you should seek out the advice of legal counsel or counseling or any other expert near you. And if you have an idea for a show topic or you need to speak with an attorney in Arizona, you can reach me at info@mymodernlaw.com.